Hello folks, and welcome to our short tutorial video on how to search for your Irish ancestors in the 1901 Census of Ireland. My name is Conan from Irish Emigrant Trails, and we specialise in creating an itinerary for your trip to Ireland, taking in some of the places your ancestors may have worked and lived. So hopefully you'll find today's tutorial useful for finding them. If you can't, we can help there too. Okay, so the 1901 and the 1911 Census of Ireland are the only two complete censuses left. And luckily, the folks over at the National Archives of Ireland have digitized them, so they are freely available at the address shown in the bar. I'll put a link in the comments. So go ahead and bring up the homepage of the website, and your screen should look like this. There's quite a lot of information here about the censuses and so on, as well as some links to other genealogy websites, but right now we're going to go ahead and click on the second link, which is Search Census. It's also a good idea to have some sort of idea of who you want to find in the census before you start. You can actually browse the census by location, but the more details you know about the people you want to find, the better. Just a note for our American friends, obviously if your ancestors came to America before 1901, then they will not be captured in this census, but some of their family members, brothers, sisters, parents who remain behind may very well be. So there's still plenty of information, even if your ancestors left for the New World in the 19th century or earlier. So search census brings up the rather simple search form. Simple that is until you click more search options, which I always like to do at the start. And there's any one of 19 fields for you to search on. The more information you put in, the more information you will get back. Be careful not to be too specific, or you may well eliminate some mistranscribed entries, for example. Okay, so I've clicked on search. The year defaults to 1911, but for this tutorial I'm going to change this to 1901. And I, for the sake of an example, I'm going to search for my great-grandparents, the Furlongs of a town called Duncannon in County Wexford. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the last name. We call it surname here in Ireland, but it's last name. Furlong. So the forename was, can you guess, Patrick. And the county is Wexford. So that pretty much is all the information I need to get me started. As I said, I can add in any of the other information on any of these points, but I risk not returning the correct search. So press search, and back comes the first 10 of 94 guys called Patrick Furlong in the 1901 census. So what I like to do is click 50 or 100, in this case 100, so I can see all the records on one page. Clicking any of these sort by links will also allow you to alphabetize the respective column. It's broken down into last name, first name, town, land or street, DED, which stands for District Electoral Division, which was the way that they gathered together various different towns and villages into voting areas, county, age and sex. Okay, so go ahead and alphabetize on the column of your choice. I'm going to choose DED, District Electoral Division, only for convenience because I know that this guy is my great-grandfather, Patrick Furlong, in Duncannon town in the DED of Ballyhack, County Wexford, age 44. Both these underlined words are links, so go ahead and click Patrick and you will come up with the entire census return for everybody in that house on the night of March 31st, 1901. What we have here is the digital transcription of the return, but the interesting thing is here in View Census Images under the Household Return Form A link. We'll talk a little bit about the other forms in due course, but for now go ahead and click on Household Return Form A, and hey presto, you will get the actual document, a scan of the actual document from 1901, the handwritten document. So depending on your browser, you can hover over the bottom right hand corner and hit the plus sign to enable you to zoom in on the document. And I'm just going to bring up the important columns in the field like this. So there you see the Christian name Patrick, surname Furlong of my great-grandfather. There were various other different columns of information captured, and as the censuses went on,
In 1911 there were extra columns added which will enable you to calculate, for example, dates of birth and dates of marriage to a pretty good estimate. The other columns here are relationship to head of family, which is always good. Religious profession, that didn't mean a religious job. It meant into what religion were the people professed. Were they Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, and so on. Their education level is also shown. Everybody here could read and write, for example. And then their age is shown, which enables you to roughly calculate a date of birth. Just a note on ages, don't take them as gospel truth. People in Ireland, for various different reasons, recorded their ages differently, and it might have even been the case that they did not know their correct age. Their gender, rank, profession, or occupation comes next. We can see Patrick was a sailor. He was in the Royal Navy of Great Britain for a long time. My grandmother Ellen was a housekeeper. Their marriage status and where they were born, also useful. If they were born in a different county, it will be listed here. My guys didn't choose to return an Irish language proficiency, and thankfully none of them were deaf or dumb. So that is the information captured on this particular form. We're going to head back to the main screen and have a look at some of the forms pertaining to the house that they lived in, which gives a complete picture of how your ancestors lived at this time. Okay, so click the back button on your browser and it will bring you back to the transcription. Okay, so some of the other original census images available. The enumerator's abstract form, Form N, it's interesting, but it's more of a statistical analysis or a number gathering exercise on the part of the enumerator. That was the person who collected the censuses. It numerically represents the town or the street or the area that the censuses were taken in. We're not going to go into it at this time. What I would like to show is the house and building return form B1, and as this was in a village, there are 7 of these, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on the first one because that's where my family is recorded. And we see here form B1, house and building return. So what this interesting sheet brings back are the types of buildings and the types of houses that were in the particular area at the time, right down to amount of windows, what the materials were, what the roof was like, and what class of house was like too. So I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. Just a note on the locations. I know from living in this particular town that the first building listed here, for example, the RIC barrack, the police station, is at the top of one particular street. So you can roughly work out where everyone else is in relation to that. It is by no means a sequential recording of where people lived, so be very careful. Don't assume that because you know where one person or another person actually lived, or you have matched them with another record, that you have, for example, the exact house. You'll need to look into it a little bit more to verify that record. Okay, so down here at number 8 is Patrick Furlong and my family's return for the buildings form. So I'm going to scroll in just a little on these particulars of the inhabited houses. We see that they gave a grade or a number to each of the particular categories: walls, roof, rooms, windows, and so on. Then they totaled those particular numbers and came up with a figure, in our case 7, which fell into the second class housing category. You can see that the barracks, unsurprisingly, at the top here was a first class house, but most of the houses on the street, I might post a picture later on, were of the second class variety. It's a 300-year-old fisherman's cottage, which 6 generations of our house have lived in, and also the house that I happened to grow up in. So next to Patrick Furlong, we can see the number of rooms occupied by each family, the total number of persons in each family, and the date on which they collected this particular return. So it was filled out March 31st and collected 1st of April. Another interesting column on the right hand side is the immediate lessor, the person from which they rented the house or who owned the house. So as you can see, like everybody in the street at this time, Lord Templemore, who was the local British aristocrat. Remember, Ireland was still part of the British Empire at this stage owned all the houses on this particular street. And that was the situation right up until around about the 1950s when my late father bought this particular property from him. Okay, so that's some interesting reading on that particular form. Remember to click into the form, look for your ancestor's name. It could be on any of the subsequent pages, and pay careful attention to what types of walls, roof, windows, and so on that they had in their house. So the last form we will look at are the out offices and farm steadings return forms B2. So for this one, you've got to quickly look for in form B1 this number here. So our number is house 8. Now I know that our house doesn't have any particular farm buildings attached to it, so I'm going to take note of number 9 also. So if we go back and then click on the B2 form, obviously not every house will be recorded here because not every house had an out office or a barn or a farm steading, a type of farm building. So number 8 doesn't appear, but number 9 does. And here are the various different types of buildings. It doesn't have a stable, a coach house, a harness room, etc., etc. But right next to our house was a piggery and a fowl house, which is interesting. It gives a good overall picture of that particular street. As you can see from looking on down through the numbers, a lot of people kept pigs, even more people kept chickens, and so on. So once these numbers were totaled and returned, the Census Return Agency could really get a good impression of various different activities throughout the different villages and so on. It's worth noting the headers of each of the documents returned in the Census of Ireland 1901 also. They tend to be pretty similar, but it gives a good overview of where the actual census took place. So it lists the county, the parliamentary division, which is South Wexford, the Poor Law Union, which is a useful genealogical resource to know, in this case New Ross, the DED, which was actually used in the census, the urban district, city and parliamentary borough didn't count in this case, town or village, street, and the barony, which again is an older way of differentiating between different areas, parish. So don't forget to look at the top of each of the returns. It will give you all the various different divisions of government, some geographical, some religious, political, and you will get a good overview of where that particular house was in all those different categories. So don't forget to look at the headers in each of the different returns. It will give you a good overview in all the different political, geographical, and census related divisions of land that there are in Ireland about where your particular ancestors lived. Some were used in this census, some weren't, for example, but it's always very good to know things like barony and poor law union. Okay folks, so that is a quick tutorial on the 1901 Census of Ireland. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, please pop us an email at the address shown on screen. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for some more videos, and if you have a suggestion for any video, please leave so in the comments. Thank you and good night.